The world outside the 40th floor windows was a constellation of cold, distant lights. Maya rested her forehead against the cool glass, her own reflection a ghost superimposed over the city. Up here, the noise of life did not exist. There was only the silent hum of the climate control and the faint, rhythmic tap of her pen against a financial report. This office was a temple of ambition. All sleek lines, polished steel, and breathtaking views are designed to make one feel both powerful and incredibly small. Maya had poured 2 years of her life into this space. She arrived before dawn and left long after the sun had surrendered. She knew the specific creak of the floorboard near the printer, the way the coffee machine sighed at exactly 7:14 p.m., and the scent of lemon-scented cleaner the night staff used. She was good. She knew she was good. Her analyses were sharp, her presentations flawless. Yet she felt like a phantom seen, but not truly perceived. A talented junior executive, a face in the meeting room, a name on the memo. The glass ceiling was not something she could shatter with her fists. It was a pervasive, invisible pressure, a weight on her lungs that made every breath a conscious effort. The soft swish of the main glass door broke the silence. She turned, her professional mask sliding into place with practiced ease. Mr. Evans stood there, the embodiment of the success this building promised. His suit was a masterpiece of tailoring, his tie a slash of confident blue. He was not a large man, but he carried an aura of command that filled the open plan space. At 55, he was a legend in the firm, charismatic, brilliant, and the architect of countless careers. His smile was a thing of corporate lore, capable of bestowing confidence or freezing blood. "Burning the midnight oil again, Maya," he said. His voice was a warm, resonant baritone, the kind that sounded like truth itself. "Just finishing the quarterly projections, Mr. Evans." She gestured to the spreadsheets glowing on her monitor. "I wanted them perfect for the morning review." He moved to stand beside her, not looking at her screen, but at her. His gaze was assessing, like a collector evaluating a new acquisition. He smelled of sandalwood and expensive aftershave. Perfection, he mused, the word hanging in the air between them. A rare commodity. Most people are content with good enough. You are not most people. He placed a single thick manila folder on her desk. The label read Project Chimera in bold black letters. It was the crown jewel account, the one every senior VP was fighting to lead. "This is your test, Maya," he said, his voice dropping to a more intimate register. "The board is watching. I am watching. Do this right. And that corner office on 42 is not a matter of if, but when." Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. The validation she had been killing herself for. The tangible proof that her sacrifice meant something. She reached for the file, her fingers brushing against the crisp cardboard. He did not let go immediately. His hand covered hers. It was not a gesture of warmth, but of possession. His skin was smooth, his grip firm, his smile was still in place, a perfect white curve. But his eyes were different. They were flat, calculating. The warmth in his voice did not reach them. They were the eyes of a man looking at a chessboard, not a person. "Your dedication is being noticed, Maya," he repeated, the words now feeling like a carefully rehearsed line. He leaned in just slightly, his voice a whisper that was almost swallowed by the vast empty room. "Let us discuss your future. After hours tomorrow." Just us. The air left her lungs. The file was in her hands now. It felt impossibly heavy. He gave a final curt nod, turned, and walked away. His footsteps echoing in the silence he left behind. Maya stood frozen, the weight of the project in one hand, the weight of his words in the other. The city lights below seemed to blur into a single, accusing stare. The whisper hung in the air, a question mark that had just been etched into the foundation of her dream. Asterisk, the morning sun. bright and unforgiving, felt like a lie. It streamed into the open plan office, glinting off the sterile surfaces. But it brought no warmth to Maya. The high from the previous night, the promise of Project Chimera, the glimpse of the corner office had curdled into a low, persistent hum of anxiety that vibrated in the marrow of her bones. His words played on a loop in her mind. Just us. She tried to dissect them, to find an innocent meaning she had missed in the darkness. Perhaps he was just discreet. Perhaps he did not want the other VPs to know he was fast-tracking her. It was a logical, professional explanation. She clung to it, but her gut, that primal, instinctual part of her, would not be silenced. It whispered of the pressure of his hand on hers, the flat, appraising look in his eyes that did not match his smile, the intimate drop of his voice. It was a language she did not want to understand, a transaction she had not agreed to. During a mid-morning lull, she found herself at the coffee bar with Sarah, a colleague from a different department. Sarah was sharp, cynical, and had been at the company for 5 years. "You look like you did not sleep," Sarah remarked, stirring a packet of sugar into her latte. Maya forced a smile. "Long night." Evans gave me the Chimera file. Sarah's eyebrows shot up. "Wow, the golden ticket. Congratulations." She took a sip, her eyes studying Maya over the rim of the cup. "So that is the reason for the face." Pre-promotion jitters. It was the opening. A chance to voice the unease, to have it dismissed by someone who knew the landscape. "It is not that," Maya said, her voice lower. She glanced around, ensuring they were alone. He wants to meet tonight, after hours, to discuss my future," he said. "Just us." She watched Sarah's face, hoping for outrage, for confirmation that this was as inappropriate as it felt. Instead, Sarah gave a slow, knowing nod. A shrug. "Ah, that." Maya's heart sank. "What do you mean, ah, that?" "It is how the game is played, Maya," Sarah said, her tone matter-of-fact, almost weary. "Evans is old school. He believes in personal loyalty. These one-on-ones are his thing. It is a test. He wants to see if you are a team player. If you can be trusted." The way she said trusted landed with a thud. It was not about integrity. It was about compliance. "But it does not feel right," Maya insisted, the protest sounding weak even to her own ears. "Of course it does not feel right," Sarah said with a faint, bitter smile. "It is not supposed to. It is a power move. You just have to decide if the prize is worth the price of admission. We have all been there. We have all been there." The phrase was a sledgehammer. It did not normalize the discomfort. It pathologized the entire system. It was not that she was paranoid. She was just new to the specific brand of poison they served here. The rest of the day was a blur of meaningless tasks. She stared at the Chimera file, its contents a jumble of numbers and strategies that now seemed trivial. The real project was the meeting itself. The real strategy was survival. Was she being prudent, preparing for the worst? Or was she being cynical, destroying a professional opportunity with her own suspicion? The two thoughts wrestled in her mind, each one landing painful blows. To prepare for a battle was to assume one was coming. But to walk in unarmed was naivety of the highest order. At 5:01 p.m., the office began to empty. The sounds of laughter, of goodbye, of weekend plans being made, felt like a cruel parody of a normal life, a life she was not living. She waited, her computer screen dark, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The silence grew heavier. She pulled out her phone. The sleek black rectangle felt like both a lifeline and a weapon. Her thumb moved on its own, a nervous tremor guiding it. She tapped the voice memo app. The interface was simple. A large red circle. A digital timer waiting to begin counting the seconds of her downfall. Or her salvation, Her thumb hovered over the record button dot. This was the line. Once she crossed it, there was no going back. It was an act of profound distrust, a declaration of war before the first shot was fired. It was also, perhaps, her only shield. She took a deep, shaky breath, her conscience screaming in one ear, Sarah's weary warning in the other dot at 7:28 p.m. She stood outside the mahogany door of his corner office. The floor was silent, a tomb of ambition. A sliver of light bled from underneath his door dot. She pulled the phone from her purse. Her hand was trembling. She looked at the red circle on the screen and pressed it. The timer began its silent, accusatory count, 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 1 second. 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 2 seconds. She slid the phone, still recording, into the inner pocket of her blazer. It felt like a cold, hard stone against her heart. She smoothed her jacket, raised her chin, and pushed the door open. The die was cast. His office was a sanctuary of power, all dark wood, leather, and framed accolades. The city sprawled beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. A galaxy of lights he seemed to own. Mr. Evans stood not behind his desk, but in the casual seating area, 2 plush armchairs separated by a low glass table. He held 2 crystal tumblers of amber liquid. Maya, come in. Sit. His voice was the same warm baritone, a familiar anchor in the unnerving quiet. He gestured to one of the chairs. Scotch. A 25-year-old Macallan. A celebration is in order. She took the offered glass, her fingers cold against the crystal. She did not drink. She sat, back straight, perched on the edge of the leather cushion. The phone in her blazer pocket felt like a live wire, its silent recording a third invisible presence in the room. I reviewed your preliminary notes on Chimera. He began, swirling the liquid in his glass. Exceptional work, truly. The depth of your analysis on the market saturation in the Asian sector, that is the kind of insight that separates leaders from followers. He leaned back, crossing his legs, the picture of relaxed authority. He painted a vision for her. The corner office, a seat at the senior strategy table, her own team to mentor and lead. He spoke of financial bonuses, stock options, the respect of her peers. It was everything she had worked for. The script was perfect, the dream laid out with meticulous care. For a few fleeting moments, she allowed herself to believe she had been paranoid. This was just a mentor investing in his most promising protégé. But then, the script began to fray at the edges. Of course, he said, his tone shifting almost imperceptibly. Talent is only one part of the equation. This firm, it is a family, and in a family, loyalty is paramount. It is about knowing who your true allies are, who opens the doors for you. His gaze held hers, and the warmth began to leach from it, replaced by a sharper, more calculating intensity. I have invested a great deal of my own political capital in you. Maya, I have gone to bat for you with the board. Defended my decision to hand you Chimera against considerable skepticism. He took a slow sip of his scotch. They worry you are too young, that you lack the fortitude for the pressures of that level. The air in the room grew thick, heavy with unspoken implication. The promotion was no longer a reward for merit. It was a favor granted by him personally. I know you have the fortitude. He continued, his voice dropping, becoming more intimate, more confiding. But I need to be sure. I need to know that your loyalty to me, to this partnership, is absolute. He placed his glass on the table with a soft, definitive click. The sound echoed in the silence. Then he stood. He did not move towards her aggressively, but he moved. He came to stand beside her chair, looking down at her. His shadow fell over her, blocking out the light from a nearby lamp. This is not just about spreadsheets and presentations, Maya. This is about trust. A deeper trust. His hand came to rest on her shoulder. It was not a pat. It was a weight. Acclaimed. Maya froze. Every muscle in her body locked. Her mind screamed, but her voice was gone, stolen by a cold, rising tide of shock. She could feel the heat of his hand through the fabric of her blazer. She could smell the sandalwood and scotch on his breath. The professional facade had not just cracked. It had vaporized. "You are a remarkable woman," he murmured, his thumb moving in a slow, deliberate circle on her shoulder. "Intelligent, driven, beautiful. That is a powerful combination. A combination I want on my side, exclusively." The words hung in the air, naked and ugly. They were no longer implications. They were demands. "The world is not fair, Maya. Men like me make the rules. And we reward those who understand how to play the game." His hand tightened slightly. "Your career can skyrocket. I can make you a star in this industry. All I require is your gratitude, your personal loyalty." He leaned down, his face closer to hers. The paternal mask was completely gone, replaced by the calm, predatory confidence of a man who was used to getting what he wanted. "It is a simple choice." "Mia," he said, his voice a chilling whisper, each word a shard of ice. "Your career or your pride." For a long, horrifying moment, there was only silence. The hum of the building, the frantic beating of her own heart, the silent, damning count of the timer in her pocket. She stood up abruptly, her movement jerky, dislodging his hand. She could not look at him. She could not speak. Her body was operating on a primal instinct to flee. She walked to the door, her legs feeling like wood. "Think about it." His voice followed her, smooth and unconcerned. "The offer is on the table, but do not think for too long." She pulled the door open and stepped out into the cool, empty hallway. The door clicked shut behind her, a sound of finality. She did not run. She walked one foot in front of the other, a marionette with cut strings. Numbness spread through her, a merciful anesthetic against the searing humiliation. The weight of the phone in her pocket was no longer just a weight. It was a leaden secret, a captured echo of her shattered dream, and it felt heavier than the entire city below. The train ride home was a blur of streaking lights and anonymous faces. Mia sat perfectly still, her hands clenched in her lap, seeing nothing. The numbness was a fragile shell, and she could feel it cracking with every jolt of the carriage. Inside, a storm was gathering, a churning vortex of shame, anger, and a cold, gripping fear. Her apartment welcomed her with a silence that was louder than any noise. It was a small, neat space, once her sanctuary from the corporate world. Now it felt like a cage. She dropped her keys on the counter. The clatter was unnaturally sharp in the stillness. She did not turn on the main light. She walked to the sofa and sat in the dim glow from the street lamp outside, still wearing her coat. The phone was a brand in her pocket. She had to know. She had to hear it. With trembling fingers, she pulled the device out. The screen glowed, a pale rectangle in the darkness. She navigated to the voice memos, her heart hammering a frantic, painful rhythm against her ribs. There it was. A file named only by date and time. 7_28_PM.M4A. She tapped play, her own voice first, thin and strained. Just finishing the quarterly projections. Then his. So reasonable. So warm. The praise for her work, the vision of the future. It sounded so professional, so normal. For a moment, a wild, desperate hope flared in her chest. Maybe she had imagined it. Maybe the pressure had gotten to her and she had constructed this horror in her mind. Then, the shift. Loyalty is paramount. The tone changed. The warmth bled out, replaced by that slick, possessive confidence. She heard the click of his glass on the table, the rustle of his movement. The unbearable pause before his hand landed on her shoulder. And then his words. Not implied. Not suggested. Explicit. Your career can skyrocket. I can make you a star in this industry. All I require is your gratitude, your personal loyalty. On the recording, her own silence was deafening. A pathetic, complicit silence. Then the final, chilling verdict. It is a simple choice, Maya, your career, or your pride. The recording ended. The silence that followed was absolute. A sob ripped from her throat, harsh and ugly. She pressed her fists against her mouth, trying to force it back in. Tears, hot and shameful, streamed down her face. She was not crying from sadness, but from a violation so profound it felt physical. The recording was not just evidence. It was the sound of her humiliation, a perfect digital capture of her powerlessness. His voice, so calm and in control, was a weapon that had just been fired again in the safety of her own home. Shame washed over her. Why had she frozen? Why had she not slapped his hand away? Why had her voice abandoned her? She felt dirty, complicit. Then came the anger, a hot, sharp spike that cut through the shame. How dare he? How dare he reduce her years of work, her talent, her ambition to a transaction? How dare he think so little of her that her pride was a trivial cost? The fear followed, cold and practical. What now? Delete it? Delete it and pretend it never happened. Go to work on Monday, smile, and find a way to politely decline his offer. She would be labeled as difficult, not a team player. Her career at the firm would be over, but she could leave with a reference. She could start over somewhere else, or she could quit. Just walk away. Send a terse email and never go back. Her phone vibrated on the coffee table, lighting up with a photo of her sister, Lena, both of them smiling on a sun-drenched beach 2 summers ago. The call went to voicemail. A moment later, a text bubble appeared. Lena, hey, you alive over there? You were supposed to call us to call about brunch. Everything okay? Maya stared at the message. Lena was her rock, her cheerleader. She would be furious on Maya's behalf. She would demand action. She would say all the right things, but giving voice to the words, saying them out loud, it would make them real in a way the recording did not. It would make her a victim in her sister's eyes, and she was not sure she could bear that. She could not articulate the filth she felt. She let the phone screen go dark. She spent the night on the sofa, drifting in and out of a fitful sleep, chased by dreams of closing doors and echoing laughter. The morning light was cruel. It exposed the tear stains on her cheeks, the exhaustion in her eyes. She made coffee she did not drink. Her phone chimed with a new email. The sound made her flinch. It was from Mr. Evans. The subject line was, Project Chimera, Next Steps. Her breath hitched. She opened it. Maya. Great to connect with you last night. I am confident you have the drive to see Chimera through to a successful conclusion. Please have the initial Phase 1 strategy on my desk by EOD Wednesday. Looking forward to reviewing your progress. Regards. Robert Evans, Sr., Vice President. The hypocrisy was a fresh, searing wound. The breezy, professional tone. The complete erasure of what had transpired just hours before. He was not worried. He was not concerned. He was a man who had made a business proposition and was now calmly awaiting the answer. In that moment, the last vestiges of her denial shattered. This was not a misunderstanding. This was the system. He was protected by his title, by his reputation, by the sheer, unassailable power of his position. He could live in both worlds, the professional and the predatory, with seamless ease. Her silence was not a shield. It was her complicity. And as she read that email again, a cold, hard resolve began to crystallize within her. Cutting through the shame and the fear, the choice was no longer about career or pride. It was about justice. Monday. arrived not as a new beginning, but as a grim continuation. Walking into the office felt like stepping onto a battlefield. Every sound was amplified, the ping of the elevator, the murmur of greetings, the click of her own heels on the polished floor. She kept her head down, a phantom moving through the tangible world of her colleagues. She saw him once, from a distance. Mr. Evans was holding court near the coffee bar, laughing with a group of senior partners. He looked exactly the same, confident, polished, untouchable. He did not glance her way. She was a minor agenda item he had already addressed, now filed away. Maya tried to bury herself in the Chimera file. The numbers and charts were a refuge, a language she understood. But her focus was shattered. Every time his name appeared in an email, her heart stuttered. Every time his voice carried from a nearby office, her skin crawled taut. It was during one of these fractured moments, as she stood to get water, that she saw her, a young woman, barely out of her undergraduate studies, with a bright, eager face and a nervous, hopeful smile. She was standing by the admin desk, clutching a new hire folder to her chest. Her name was Chloe, according to the temporary badge, and she was being personally escorted by Mr. Evans, "thrilled to have you on the team." "Chloe," he was saying, his voice dripping with that same avuncular charm Maya remembered so well. "We like to give our top interns real responsibility. You'll be shadowing me directly on a few key projects. It is the best way to learn." He placed a hand on Chloe's shoulder, the same possessive, mentoring gesture. Maya froze. Her water forgotten, she saw the look on Chloe's face. It was one of pure, unadulterated gratitude. The look of someone who believed they had been chosen for their talent, their potential. It was the same look Maya knew had been on her own face just weeks ago. The same trust. The same hope. The sight was a physical blow, knocking the air from her lungs. The personal violation, the shame, the anger, it all coalesced in that single, horrifying moment into something else entirely, a protective, incandescent fury. This was not just about her anymore. She was not the first. She would not be the last. Chloe would be next. And after Chloe, another, and another. He was a predator on an assembly line, grooming the next batch of young, ambitious women with the same playbook. Her silence was not just complicity, it was consent. It was her handing the next victim to him. She returned to her desk, her hands trembling not with fear, but with a cold, clear purpose. The internal debate was over. The path of least resistance was now a path to moral bankruptcy. She waited until the office was at its loudest. During the post-lunch lull, she opened an incognito browser window. Her fingers were steady now as she navigated to the company's internal HR portal. She clicked on the anonymous reporting link. The form was sterile and bureaucratic. Nature of complaint, date and time of incident, persons involved. She filled it out with clinical detachment. She did not use her name. She created a new anonymous email address. She wrote a brief, factual statement, devoid of emotion. On the evening of October 26th, in his office, SVP Robert Evans conditioned my career advancement on the provision of personal, sexual favors. Then came the attachment. She had prepared it the night before. A 60-second clip from the recording. It started with his voice, already shifted in tone. Loyalty is paramount. It included the sound of his glass clicking down, his footsteps, the explicit demand for personal loyalty, and ended with his chilling ultimatum: your career or your pride. It was the digital equivalent of a smoking gun. Her finger hovered over the submit button. This was the point of no return. There would be no deleting, no pretending, no quiet resignation. This was a declaration of war. She thought of Chloe's hopeful face. She clicked. Submit. A confirmation message appeared. Your report has been received. Thank you. For a long moment, nothing happened. The office hummed on, oblivious. Had it worked? Had it been lost in the digital void? Then, 2 days later, the summons came. It was not a phone call. It was a calendar invitation from a generic HR operations address. The subject was vague, meeting workplace matters. The location was a small, windowless conference room on a different floor. Far from the prying eyes of her department, the time was 3:00 p.m. At 2:59 p.m., Maya walked into the room. A stern-faced woman in her 50s, whom she did not recognize, sat at the table. Her nameplate read Anya Sharma, HR. Next to her was a younger, sharper-faced woman with a stack of legal pads. She introduced herself as Ms. Davison from the legal department. The door clicked shut behind Maya. Anya Sharma gestured for her to sit. Her expression was unreadable, professional. Thank you for coming, Maya, she began, her voice devoid of warmth. We have received a serious report. We would like to give you an opportunity to speak about your recent interactions with Senior Vice President Robert Evans. Ms. Davison from legal picked up a pen. Her eyes fixed on Maya. The system was no longer a faceless entity. It had a face. 2 of them. And it was now looking directly at her. The investigation was a secret that was not a secret at all. It leaked not with a bang, but with a whisper, seeping through the ventilation shafts of the high-rise, poisoning the air. By Wednesday, the office atmosphere had fractured. Maya felt it the moment she stepped off the elevator. The usual morning din was subdued, conversations hushing as she passed, then resuming in a lower, more intent register. It was a gallery of sidelong glances and averted eyes. Sarah, her coffee bar confidant, gave her a tight, almost imperceptible nod in the hallway, a gesture of solidarity that felt more like a warning. Others were not so subtle. A group of junior analysts from another team fell completely silent as she walked by, their eyes wide with a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. This social validation layer was a tapestry of judgment. Woven in the break rooms and over instant messages, she overheard a snippet near the printer. 2 senior associates she barely knew, always knew there was something off about that arrangement. Evans giving her Chimera? Come on, yeah, but to go to HR. That's nuclear. You do not come back from that. Another conversation from a group of older male VPs whose laughter suddenly seemed too loud when she entered the kitchen to get water. Their silence was a wall. Then there were the quiet ones. The other young women. A data engineer from the IT department caught her eye in the restroom and offered a small, genuine smile before quickly looking away. An executive assistant pressed a folded sticky note into her hand as they passed in the hall. It read simply, "Thank you." These moments were lifelines, but they were few and far between, tiny flames in a vast, cold darkness. The official narrative, the one propagated by Evans's allies, was already taking shape. She was the troublemaker, ambitious but fragile, a woman who could not handle the pressure of a high-powered career and was now trying to take down a powerful man to save face. She had misinterpreted mentorship. She was trying to extort a promotion. The rumors were ugly, creative, and designed to dismantle her credibility. And through it all, Mr. Evans was a masterclass in calm defiance. He moved through the office with the same unshakable confidence. He did not hide. He held his meetings. He gave his presentations, his voice as resonant and commanding as ever. He was publicly painting himself as the victim of a tragic misunderstanding, a loyal mentor betrayed by an unstable protege. The performance was flawless. He was not the one who looked haunted. She was. The psychological isolation was a physical weight on her shoulders. She was an island in a sea of whispered speculation. Every laugh felt like it was at her expense. Every closed door seemed to hide a conversation about her. Her desk, once a place of focused ambition, was now a spotlighted stage where she performed the act of normality while feeling herself crumble inside. It was on the third day of this silent siege that it happened. Maya was hiding in a rarely used stairwell, trying to steady her breathing when the door creaked open. It was Eleanor Vance, a senior partner and one of the few women on the executive board. Maya had always admired her, a figure of sharp intellect and unassailable integrity who had carved her path through this male-dominated world decades ago. Eleanor's gaze was not pitying. It was appraising. She leaned against the railing, her presence filling the concrete space. "I heard what you did, Maya," she said, her voice low and steady. Maya braced for another veiled accusation, another piece of cynical advice, but Eleanor's next words were different. "It takes a courage this company has forgotten. A courage that makes a lot of comfortable people very, very nervous." For the first time in days, Maya felt a flicker of something other than dread. It was validation, a recognition of her truth from someone who mattered, but the flicker was brief. Eleanor's expression grew grim, her eyes clouded with a hard-won knowledge. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper that carried more weight than a shout. "But listen to me," she said, her tone shifting from admiration to urgent warning. "What you have done is right, but this is not about right or wrong. This is about power, and they protect their own." She gave Maya one last long look, a look that seemed to convey a universe of battles fought and lost. Then she turned and pushed the door open, leaving Maya alone once more in the echoing stairwell. The words hung in the air, more chilling than any rumor. They protect their own. The system was not just biased, it was armored, and she had just thrown a stone at a fortress. The battle moved from whispers to documents. It was a cold, paper-based war fought in serial conference rooms and over encrypted emails. A conflict where the weapons were legalese and psychological pressure. The first salvo came from legal. Miss Davison, no longer just an observer, became the primary point of contact. Her tone was no longer inquiring. It was directive. She presented Maya with a thick stack of papers, a non-disclosure agreement, and a settlement offer. "This is a generous resolution, Maya," Miss Davison said, her voice flat as a judge's gavel. "It includes a significant financial severance, a positive letter of recommendation, and a clean exit. All of this unpleasantness goes away. You can move on with your life." The subtext was clear. Take the money and run. When Maya did not immediately agree, the tone shifted. A new lawyer, a man with a sharp suit and a colder gaze, joined a subsequent meeting. He represented the firm's interests, not HR's. He spoke of defamation per se. He mentioned the irreparable reputational damage her unsubstantiated allegations were causing a valuable company leader. He asked pointed, invasive questions designed to find cracks in her story, to uncover any past mistake that could be used to discredit her. "Are you certain you understood his meaning? Had you been drinking that evening? You have a history of ambitious drive, Maya. Could this be a case of expectations not aligning with reality?" It was a masterclass in gaslighting, an attempt to make her doubt her own senses, her own memory, the damning evidence of her own recording. The pressure was not just legal. It was social, and it was professional. Her access to the Kimura files was revoked. Her keycard no longer worked on the executive floor. Projects were reassigned without explanation. She was being systematically erased, made redundant before her resignation was even forced. The message was unambiguous. Her career at this firm, and likely in the entire industry if they had their way, was over. Through it all, her support system became her anchor. Her sister, Lena, after the initial shock and fury had subsided, became a fortress of unconditional belief. She did not push for details. She simply listened, made tea, and reminded Maya of who she was outside of those glass walls. "You are not the one who should be ashamed," Lena would say, her voice firm. "He is, they are. Do not let them make you forget that." A few close friends from outside the company provided a sanctuary of normalcy, reminding her of a world where a person's worth was not determined by a title or a stock option dot, but in the quiet moments. Alone in her apartment, the questions echoed. A relentless internal monologue. Was it worth it? The principle felt abstract, a noble idea, but the cost was terrifyingly real. The career she had bled for was in ashes. Her professional reputation was being painted as that of a hysterical, problematic woman. The financial security she had built was about to vanish. To trade a career for a principle. The scales seemed grotesquely unbalanced. A lifetime of work, of sacrifice, traded for a 60-second audio clip and a stand that most of the world would never know about, or worse, would misunderstand. She stared at the settlement papers. The number was indeed generous. It was a life-changing sum of money. It was an escape hatch. She could take it, sign the NDA, and this entire nightmare would be legally erased. She could move to a new city, start over. No one would ever have to know, but then she would think of Eleanor Vance's warning. They protect their own. Signing would be the ultimate protection for them. It would seal the silence. It would fund her disappearance and ensure Mr. Evans remained in his corner office, free to target the next Chloe. Her silence would have a price tag, and it would be the most expensive thing she ever sold. The war was invisible, but the trenches were dug deep inside her. It was a battle between survival and integrity, between comfort and conscience. Days bled into one another, a tense stalemate. She did not sign. Then the summons came again. This one was different. It was not for a small, windowless room. It was for the main boardroom on the 42nd floor, the heart of the fortress. The day of the final decision had arrived. She walked in, her back straight, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. The room was immense, with a panoramic view of the city. Seated at the long, mahogany table were Anya Sharma from HR and the cold-eyed lawyer from the firm, and Mr. Evans. He was there, flanked by his own personal attorney, a sleek man with a silver watch. Evans did not look at her. His gaze was fixed straight ahead, his jaw tight. The easy confidence was gone, replaced by a rigid, controlled tension. He was in the dock, and he knew it, the head of HR. A man named Mr. Sterling, whom she had only ever seen in company-wide emails, stood at the head of the table. His face was grave. He held a single, sealed manila envelope in his hands, the fate of her future, his career. And the soul of the company itself was contained within that thin paper shell. The air in the boardroom was thin and cold, starved of life. The panoramic view of the city seemed like a painting of a world Maya could no longer touch. She stood just inside the door, her anchor point the solid weight of the chair back she gripped. Across the vast expanse of polished mahogany, Mr. Evans sat as if carved from stone, his lawyer a dark sentinel beside him. Mr. Sterling, the head of HR, did not invite anyone to sit. He remained standing at the head of the table, the sealed envelope a stark white rectangle in his hands. His gaze swept the room, lingering on no one, yet taking in everything. "This has been a deeply troubling investigation for the company," he began. His voice clipped and devoid of emotion, a recitation of corporate protocol. "The allegations made are of the most serious nature. The board has been briefed. All evidence has been reviewed." He paused, and the silence was heavier than any sound. Evans's lawyer shifted, a subtle rustle of expensive fabric. "My client has maintained his full cooperation and continues to deny these baseless characterizations of a private mentoring session." Mr. Sterling's eyes flickered to the lawyer. Then away, a dismissal so subtle it was brutal. He looked directly at Maya for the first time. The anonymous report included an audio file. We have subjected it to forensic analysis. It has been verified as authentic, unedited. A crack appeared in Evans's stone facade, a slight, almost imperceptible twitch at the corner of his eye. His shoulders tightened under the exquisite tailoring of his suit. In the interest of absolute transparency and reaching a definitive conclusion, Mr. Sterling continued, his hand moving to a small, sleek speaker placed in the center of the table. The executive committee felt it necessary to review the primary evidence directly. He pressed a button on his phone dot, and the room filled with his voice, not the powerful baritone from the presentations, but the one from the recording, intimate, predatory. ... Loyalty is paramount. It is about knowing who your true allies are. Who opens the doors for you? Maya did not need to look at the recording. She knew every pause, every inflection. She watched its effect instead. Anya Sharma, the HR representative, looked down at her hands, her lips pressed into a thin, white line. A faint flush of shame, or perhaps anger, crept up her neck. I have invested a great deal of my own political capital in you, Maya. They worry you lack the fortitude. The cold-eyed lawyer from the firm stared at the tabletop, his professional detachment looking suddenly like acute discomfort. Then came the sounds that were worse than the words. The soft, definitive click of the scotch glass on the table. The rustle of movement. The unbearable, silent pause that screamed of his hand landing on her shoulder. Mr. Sterling's face was ashen. He was hearing the rot at the heart of his company, and it was uglier than any spreadsheet could ever show. Your career can skyrocket. I can make you a star in this industry. All I require is your gratitude, your personal loyalty, and then the final damning sentence delivered with that chilling, conversational calm. It is a simple choice, Maya, your career or your pride. Mr. Sterling pressed a button on his phone. The silence that rushed back in was seismic. The recording was only a minute long. But in that minute, a reputation built over 3 decades was dismantled. The charismatic leader was gone, stripped away, leaving only the naked, ugly truth of the man beneath. All eyes, inevitably, turned to Robert Evans. All eyes, inevitably, turned to Robert Evans. The transformation was absolute. The color had drained from his face, leaving a waxy gray pallor. His confident mask had not just cracked. It had dissolved, revealing a core of sheer, unvarnished shame. He looked small. The grand chair seemed to swallow him. He stared at the speaker in the middle of the table as if it were a venomous snake, his breathing shallow. He could not deny the sound of his own voice, the undeniable intent that dripped from every syllable. There were no more allies in the room, only witnesses to his downfall. Mr. Sterling let the silence hang, allowing the horror to settle deep into the bones of everyone present. He cleared his throat, the sound like a gunshot in the quiet. Robert Evans, he said, his voice now carrying the full, cold weight of judgment. The evidence is incontrovertible. Your actions constitute gross misconduct and a fundamental breach of the company's code of ethics and our values. Effective immediately, your employment with this firm is terminated. He looked at Evans's lawyer. You will escort him to his office to collect personal effects. He will be off the premises within the hour. Security has been notified. For a long moment, no one moved. The words terminated, gross misconduct echoed in the lavish room. Then Evans stirred. He pushed his chair back, the legs scraping against the floor with a jarring shriek. He stood, his movements slow, robotic. He did not look at his lawyer. He did not look at Mr. Sterling. His gaze traveled across the table and found Maya. There was no anger there, no fury. The defiance was gone, extinguished by the audio proof. What looked back at her was a hollowed-out shell of a man, a profound, bottomless shame that seemed to swallow the light from his eyes. In that look was the complete and utter understanding of what he had lost, not just his job, but his legacy, his respect, his very identity. He had no words. She had none for him. He turned and, followed by his silent lawyer, walked out of the boardroom for the last time. The door clicked shut. A soft final period at the end of his sentence. The offer came the next morning, delivered by a somber-faced Mr. Sterling in the same, now tainted boardroom. The promotion is yours. Maya, he said, his voice careful, conciliatory. This VP position? It is the right thing to do. We want to make this right. The corner office, the team, the title, everything she had worked for, everything she had been promised, was now being handed to her on a silver platter, a peace offering from a corporation desperate to cauterize its wound. She looked at him, and for the first time she felt no awe, no ambition, no fear, only a vast and weary clarity. No, she said, her voice quiet but absolute. Thank you, but no. He was visibly startled. This was not part of the script. The victim was supposed to take the restitution, and the narrative could be neatly closed. Maya, I understand your feelings are raw, but this is a significant opportunity. You have earned it, have I? She asked, not with bitterness, but with a simple, profound curiosity. Or is this the price you are willing to pay for my silence? That office, that title, it was the bait on his hook. I will not take a prize that still smells of his corruption. The price is too high. The price was not the struggle. It was the memory. Every time she walked into that corner office, she would hear his whisper. Every time she saw her new title on a business card, she would see his hand covering hers. The prize had been irreparably tainted. She went to her desk one last time to collect her things. The news of Evans's termination had spread like a shockwave, and the office atmosphere had shifted again. The whispers were gone, replaced by a stiff, uncomfortable silence. The looks were no longer accusing, but odd, fearful, perhaps even guilty. She was no longer just a woman. She was an event, a force of nature who had toppled a giant. It was a lonely kind of reverence. She placed her framed photo of Lena, her favorite pen, a small succulent she had kept alive for 2 years, into a simple cardboard box. It was a surprisingly small collection, a meager archive of a life lived within these walls. There was no celebration in this ritual, only a profound and weary exhaustion, the kind that follows a long and brutal surgery. The tumor was cut out, but the body was left scarred and weak. She did not say goodbye. She simply picked up the box, turned her back on the gleaming monitors and the silent, watching eyes, and walked toward the elevator. The doors slid shut, closing off the 40th floor forever. The descent was smooth, silent, final. When she emerged onto the street, the afternoon sun was warm on her skin. The noise of the city, the honking cabs, the chatter of pedestrians was a shocking, vibrant assault on her senses after the tomb-like silence of the office. She stood for a moment, disoriented, a diver breaking the surface after too long in the deep. She walked, not toward the subway, but toward a small, patchy park nestled between the skyscrapers. She found an empty bench and sat, placing the cardboard box beside her. She let the sun wash over her face. She closed her eyes and breathed in the air, unfiltered by corporate climate control. The burden was gone. The constant, humming anxiety that had lived in her chest for weeks had simply vanished. There was no grand moral. No triumphant music swelled in the city's cacophony. She did not feel like a victor, arms raised in conquest. Nor did she feel like a victim, broken and defined by what had been done to her. She was just Maya, a woman sitting on a park bench, fundamentally, irrevocably changed. She had lost a job, a career path, a certain version of her future. But she had reclaimed something far more essential. Her voice, her integrity, the unassailable truth of her own experience. A sparrow hopped along the path, pecking at an invisible crumb. A child laughed in the distance. Life, messy and unconcerned with corporate dramas, went on. She had chosen her own soul over a corrupted prize. And in the gentle, forgiving silence that settled within her, that felt like enough. It was not a happy ending. It was a quiet one. And for the first time in a very long time, it was hers.